And welcome to this week's special episode of the UFO show here on the Area 51 Sports Network, brought to you by Bet99.com. Make sure to head over to area51sportsnet.com/betting. There you can find a code for a bet bonus on your first bet into the sites. Now, as you guys can see, we have some special guests with us. We have from the Area 51 Sports Network our footy fellas, Joshua and Nathan, and that's because we're going to be talking some World Cup. But before we jump into the World Cup, we are going, as promised, we are just going to quickly touch on the Grey Cup that is this week. Now, Winnipeg, we're not going to really go deep into this. Winnipeg's the favorite here, but if you are going to bet on the Grey Cup, wait until Sunday at about 1 or 2 p.m. because Zach Collaros, the quarterback for Winnipeg, is not practicing this week, and his status is up in the air for that game. So if you are going to put a bet down, wait until Sunday. You can put a bet down now, but the safe bet is that if you put it down Sunday at about 2 o'clock, that's when you know which quarterback is starting, and that's going to change the line a lot. So let's jump into why we brought Josh and Nathan on here, and that is that there's a pretty big event starting on, on the 20th, correct? Which would be
Sunday, I think.
Sunday, yes. And that is the World Cup.
Yeah, pretty big event.
Yeah, it's starting with the barn-burning match of Ecuador versus Qatar.
Yeah, so look, there's a lot of issues with this World Cup. We're not going to go deep into it. There's a great documentary on Netflix, docuseries about FIFA that if you have the chance, take a watch. Literally, Sepp Blatter is admitting to it being a mistake. Former FIFA president, there's, issues around the LGBTQ community there. There's issues around, the workers literally dying and not being allowed to leave the country. There's the fact that Qatar didn't even have, established, soccer, organization, really. Like, they didn't really have, fields. They didn't have stadiums. But and also the fact that they had to play it in the winter so the players didn't die. But yeah, still, as John Oliver of Last Week Tonight did a great piece about it a couple of years ago. It's like, regardless of how disgusting this organization is, you're still pumped for the World Cup. And this year we have a, personal connection with Canada making it for the first time I know in my lifetime. And I think everybody, if not most of the people on this call's lifetime.
I was around, I'll say that much.
That was kind of rude by Adam. I guess we'll start there then.
I was actually old enough to remember it, so.
There you go. Does Canada score a goal this time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that was pretty easy. Do they make it out of the group stage?
No.
No.
Okay, why do you think that is? I assume you're going to say Belgium and Croatia would make it out then. So what separates Belgium and Croatia from Canada?
You want to go ahead, Josh?
Yeah, we touched about this on the Terminal City FC podcast live stream yesterday, but we'll say it again for those who missed it. Belgium and Croatia are just two different beasts, and they're two of the best soccer nations on the world right now, two golden generations reaching their end, though more so with Croatia. And just these two teams have world-class players, and no disrespect to Canada. Canada has its own world-class player in Alphonso Davies, but he's not enough to get them over the hump over Belgium and Croatia. But I wouldn't be surprised if Canada beats either one of them, because stranger things have happened at these international tournaments. But these two teams are just built different.
Yeah, and you talk about that. Who can forget Greece back in 2004, right? Anything's possible?
Anything's
what
possible.
Greece did back then, I mean, no one would have ever given them that opportunity to do so. Who knows? You can have a surprise again, but there's a lot of teams in this World Cup that could be that surprise above and beyond Canada. I don't think Canada will get out of the group stage, and that's nothing against us as a nation and us as a footballing nation. It's the nature of the draw. It's who we got in our group, and Belgium and Croatia are two tough beasts.
And there's a little bit of controversy of how Canada, well, not controversy, but Canada losing on the last match day of the points system, and that's why they're in this group. Or was it they lost or they tied? One of the two.
Yeah, basically what it was is they had an opportunity to move up a pot. So basically they have 4 pots. Depending on where you finish in your qualifying and what your FIFA ranking is, decides what pot your country goes into. And then when they draw each group, there's a one from pot A, B, C, and D. We could have gotten into pot C. We just didn't get it. And unfortunately, that was because as soon as we qualified, we kind of fell asleep a little bit. And our last 2 games weren't really much to write home about. We ended up in pot D, or pot 4, which is kind of where the expectation was. I mean, you got to remember that before the qualifiers even started, we weren't even supposed to be here. Nobody expected us ever to get out of the 3rd qualifying stage. And not only did we get out, we topped it. So I think the fact that we got in, to me, it's not much of a controversy. I think it's a happy surprise that we're at the show.
So let's jump into the groups here. We'll start with Group A. So Netherlands is the heavy favorite to win Group A. Then you got Senegal, Ecuador, and Qatar. Now, Senegal is an interesting situation, and I guess Josh, you can touch on this because Mane is not playing he's just been ruled out for the World Cup. But I don't know if that's going. I don't think Ecuador or Qatar are good enough to upset Senegal, but that could be, later on in the tournament, something to watch.
Yeah, totally. That's something you really got to watch for because Mane is by far their best player, one of the best in the world. Liverpool know how much they miss him, and the fact that he's not even going to play in the tournament, it's a huge loss for Senegal, and they're weaker in attack, obviously, but it gives teams like Qatar and Ecuador a chance, like, oh, they don't have their best player. We could possibly upset them if we do things right. So, I mean, I still have Senegal going through to the next round, even without Mane, but it's going to be a lot tougher for them.
I agree with Josh. I think Senegal will go through, but what this has done is this has just made it a dogfight for that final 3rd spot. Ecuador is a team that's been in the World Cup before. They know what it means. And Qatar is sneakily a good Asian side. They actually won the Asian Cup not too long ago. So they do have skill within there. They have skill that the rest of the world hasn't really seen because a lot of their players don't play anywhere else around the world. So people don't really know what to expect when it comes to them. Senegal, though, has something to prove in this World Cup because they almost made it out of the group stages 4 years ago. The only reason they didn't is because Japan had fewer yellow cards than them. They were tied on points for that 2nd spot. It went down to goal difference. They were tied. It went down to yellow cards, and Japan got in. Senegal has something to prove, and even though Mane is not going to be there, I think that's going to be enough to get the rest of the team over it.
Now, we know the stories out of Qatar. For instance, it just came out that they're paying people to pretend to cheer for teams and the living conditions. Do you feel like we could run into a situation where, I don't want to. This World Cup is unprecedented in what's going on. Do you see a situation where, teams, if they play Qatar, could feel that they're a little bit in danger if they, if they win 5-0, something around that, because it just feels like this World Cup has the potential to really be a violent World Cup.
There's a rumor that was actually started today. It was making the rounds on some of the more obscure sports sites. It hasn't been picked up by mainstream media, and I think that they're going to be touching this with the longest 10-foot pole imaginable, that Qatar has already paid an $8 million payout to Ecuador for Ecuador to throw the first match. So, I mean, you're going to have stories like that that are going to be infecting this entire World Cup right through to the end. I mean, it could be a violent one. I don't think it's going to be violent. I think it's going to be political, but I don't think it's going to spill beyond that. If it does spill beyond that, it's not going to happen in Qatar. It's going to happen in other nations.
Yeah, this is definitely, Qatar is going to be interesting. just because I feel like not a lot of people know what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on to Group B. Now, this one is an interesting one because England is favored at minus 295, but this is what people consider like one of the, you know, not the group of death, but like one of the unpredictable groups because you got USA, you got Wales, and you got Iran on top of England, and you could theoretically picture like England's not as strong of a team as they have been in the past. But you could, there's a real theory that any four of these teams could walk out group winners.
Josh and I were talking about this yesterday when we did our show, and the one thing we decided is whoever qualifies out of this group, it's not because they did well, it's because they tripped up the least. That's kind of what it feels like when it comes to this group. You take a look at like England. England is usually defensively sound, but they're a boring team to watch, and they've struggled to try and find that goal scoring spark that they had in previous competitions. On top of that, when it comes to the big show, they're kind of a mediocre team. Wales basically was put on Gareth Bale's back and dragged across in order to get here, right? The partnership that he had with Aaron Ramsey kind of just doesn't exist anymore, and they're having some struggling areas. Wales has a young team, though. They do have some interesting players that could kind of step up, but I mean, Wales is kind of like Canada in the fact that Wales hasn't been here in decades. This is their first World Cup, I think, since the 60s. Iran, nobody knows anything about Iran. I mean, they're kind of a wild card. I don't see them doing all that well, but I mean, they could be a bit of a spoiler when it comes to other teams. And then with the United States, I mean, on paper, they seem like a decent team, but they have a coach that struggles.
My question for you guys is about England because, they went to the World Cup semifinal last time. They lost in the Euro final like a year and a half ago. Like, there seems to be a lot of turmoil. I don't have the line in front of me here. Maybe Adam can bring it up. But is there any value in betting on England to miss, not qualify out of the group stage? Because
So
I don't know. They seem like a good team, but every time I hear something about England, they're a complete disaster.
So England to reach the quarterfinals, yes is at minus 200 and no is at plus 141.
I'd
that
be
value.
surprised if England didn't qualify out of the group stage, at least in a 1 or 2 spot. I do have them qualifying. I
do.
mean, it's a bit of a ballsy bet if you decide to take it, but yeah, it's a bit of a stretch in my mind.
Yeah, me too. I also feel like this is England's group to lose, despite everything that's gone with their team. Like, there's some questionable choices by Gareth Southgate. Like, he has Harry Maguire back in the squad over someone like Fikayo Tomori, who's a promising young defender playing for AC Milan. So, and they have a lot of injuries as well. Like, Reece James and Ben Chilwell are not going to the World Cup because of injuries.
A big
And-
surprise. Big surprise. The England manager picks a EPL player over a player not playing in the EPL.
Gareth Southgate picks the players that he knows, and he leaves everyone else. Like, even players that haven't done that well this year, like say someone like a Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's always going to get picked regardless of what his domestic form is because Southgate knows him, right? That's what he goes with.
Yeah, it's interesting. Harry Kane. You talk about who's gonna like England struggling. Harry Kane is the Golden Boot favorite. So that one. So I think that the betting odds have England going pretty far.
A lot of the things that I've seen with England is that they'll at least get to the quarterfinals. That I think is doable by them. I don't know if I see Harry Kane. I don't see him getting a golden boot. You got to go a little bit deeper in order to do that. On top of that, Harry Kane is going to be stifled by the service that he gets. And while there is some interesting players there that could do it, that's not Gareth Southgate's style. I mean, he is a very rigid manager. He sticks to a certain form. There's not a lot of creativity in the sides that he offers. And if Harry Kane's not getting the ball, Harry Kane's not scoring.
So let's jump into Group C here. Argentina, the clear favorite at minus 257. You got Poland, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia. Now, I think it's safe to say that Poland and Mexico are the favorites to go through to the next round. But I don't think that, in CONCACAF we realize that, like, Poland is ahead of Mexico to win that group in the betting state, and I don't think we always think of Mexico as like
Sorry,
this
did you say
unstoppable.
Mexico and Poland?
Yeah,
What about
Poland.
Argentina?
Argentina's the favorite,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
and then it goes Poland, and then Mexico, and then Saudi Arabia. But in CONCACAF, we all think of Poland as Mexico as like this unbeatable force, and I don't think we put into perspective that like in the world rankings, you know, like they're not like this unbeatable force that we think of them being in CONCACAF.
Josh and I think when we talked yesterday, this was one of our disagreements actually, because I have Poland taking that second spot.
Yeah, and I have Mexico in that second spot. I mean, no disrespect to Poland, but they rely way too much on Robert Lewandowski. Like in the last two tournaments, that's what happened. And if they just get themselves together and don't rely on Lewandowski as much as they have in the past, they could go through. But Mexico's always been a scrappy side. They're a weaker side, in my opinion, in this tournament. But I just have that feeling they'll somehow find a way to go
This is
through.
one of the weaker Mexican sides that's been around for quite a while. On top of that, I don't put a lot of faith in their coaching right now. When you look at Poland, Poland is one of those teams that just has built a good team. Yeah, they got a superstar on top, but they can actually get him the ball. You got a player like Piotr Zielinski who plays for Napoli. I mean, you look where Napoli is right now in Italy. That's a lot of it's because of the Zielinski. And he is one of those guys that's the engine in the middle of the park that can feed out the ball to a Lewandowski, to those sort of players and make creativity happen. I think it's enough to get him out of the group. I don't know if they're going to go much further than that, but I think they'll get that number 2 spot.
Fair. That's not a they could upset, but that's a because that 2-3 who gets 2 and who gets 3 plays a huge factor. Like you don't want to be a 3 seed in a division.
No.
That's for sure.
Not at all. It's going to be interesting because whoever's going through, you got to look at the other side of the bracket. Who's going to be facing, Group C when they actually get to the round of 16? Who are they going to want to face? Poland or Mexico?
So Group D, France is the clear favorite. Reigning World Cup champions. You still got Mbappe leading the rush up there. Not, I don't think they're gonna have too much trouble. But then you got Denmark, and then that battle for the third spot that we just talked about, Australia and Tunisia. So I think it's pretty clear that it will go France, Denmark, but
Yep.
that Australia Tunisia battle, that will be interesting because those are two teams who just made it into the World Cup. They're not really high in the rankings, and that game when they play each other will be massive.
The one thing with France is they have a very, very poor midfield this time around. They're missing players like Paul Pogba. They're missing players like Conte. That's really, really going to hurt them. They're absolutely going to qualify top of the group, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens to them afterwards. Denmark is, again, a well-built team. They've got a great midfield, and I think that's going to really benefit them, not only in creativity, but in holding the ball and in ball winning, especially a player like Pierre-Emerick Højbjerg. When it comes to Australia and Tunisia, I think Australia has enough to overtake a team like Tunisia. Australia went through a bit of a crisis of faith when it came to what they were going to do in the World Cup, and a lot of that was when they decided to leave the Oceanic kind of division and move over to Asia, just because they needed the competition. I mean, you got to remember, I don't know if you guys ever saw the documentary where they were playing American Samoa and won the game something like 33-0. I mean, there was absolutely nothing for them there. I think Australia is now playing in an area with a lot more competition, and I think that they're better off for it.
Yeah, I have to agree there, especially with France's midfield. We talked about this on the show yesterday. A lot of young guys. A lot of young guys will be in their first World Cup. And without the experience of Conte and Pogba, it's going to be tough. And they'll finish first in the group. And I think they'll go far. But that midfield is something that you got to keep an eye on. If they struggle, I have a feeling the rest of the team could break.
I do
I have
have
a question
France.
about France before we move
Yeah, go
on
ahead.
here. I like them to win the World Cup. I think Adam has the lines up in front of him. I just want your guys' thoughts on France to win the World Cup, because last I checked, I think they're about plus 650, plus 700, somewhere in that range. So there's some good
So
value there.
France is at plus 700.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
have France as being the one defending champion with the best chance to kind of do the double since Brazil did it back in the early 60s. I think that I don't think they're going to do it, but I think they have the best opportunity of any World Cup winner since the 60s.
so yeah, you can make a good bet that they'll be the ones to break up the World Cup champions curse.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into the group of death here, and that is Group E. Spain, Germany. So Spain's the favorite right now, and then you also have Japan and Costa Rica. I think it's safe to say that Japan is gonna. Well, I don't think it's ever safe to say that somebody, but I think the general thinking is Japan is gonna steal that third spot in that group. Well, if they play like they did against Canada, maybe not today, but yeah, that battle, Germany versus Spain. Do you think that Germany? Spain is a. I think it's kind of hard to like figure out this one because I feel like Germany is a lot of older guys, but Spain is also a lot of what's the vibe on these two teams?
The one big question I have on Spain is in goal. They have 3 goalkeepers that they've chosen. The guy who has the most caps out of any of them has 7. He hasn't really played a lot. And then they got the other 2 have 1 and 0. So if they end up having any sort of goalkeeper issues, they're putting a guy in that literally has no experience on the international stage. They're going to have to make sure that they rely on the other 10 outfield players, to bail them out. Spain's a good team. They're always a good team. I don't know. I can't really get a read on them. They are, I guess the one thing you can say is I do agree with you is that they are a young team comparatively to previous years. It's a bit of a transition for them, but I think their transition in Spain is also reflective of the transition going on in La Liga as well. And you're seeing that transition, especially when it's being exemplified by the Barcelonas, the Athletic Bilbaos, and teams that, basically any team that's not the Real Madrids. A lot of these teams are going through rebuilding right now, and I think that's being reflected in what we see as the players that are available for the national side.
Yeah, we got a really young Spain team here, and the only veteran you could say on the team that has been part of the previous squads is Sergio Busquets.
Yeah,
that I can think of. Got guys like Rodri and Ansu Fati. So yeah, we talked about it also that it's kind of surprised they didn't bring David De Gea to Qatar for the World Cup because of his experience. And we talked about he's not on form right now, but he has that experience in goal, and he could be a leader for the young goalkeepers. And for Germany, a lot of older guys, but there are a few young guys. There's Kai Havertz and Jamal Musiala. But I do have Germany winning the group because they have the experience, and they also have the young guys. You can never count out the Germans. They're
Germany, and we talked about this on the show as well, is that about a decade ago, actually over a decade ago.
Yeah, over a decade ago.
They didn't qualify out of the group stage. They had an absolutely disastrous World Cup, and it created a bit of a crisis of faith within footballing in the country. They completely, basically, burned everything to the ground and started over again. They completely restructured. How do we actually teach players to be players? And they started, we don't want to teach pros. We want to start at the ages of 3 and 4. And how do we teach these players coming up? They did the exact same thing with their coaching and with refereeing in the country. And the thing is we're now at the point where those first players that are coming through this brand new system are now part of this team. They're now a part of the World Cup. The players like we were talking about, like Kai Havertz. This is a transitional team in that you have a good mix of veteran and age. But I think what it does is it really sets up Germany to be really, really good in the years to come. We're basically just getting the first glimpse of what it's going to look like. I have them like Josh as well. They're going to top this group. they're a team that could go deep. I think they could even be a dark horse to win the thing. But I think this is just the beginning of seeing the powerhouse that Germany is going to become in 4 years.
Yeah, this is like the passing of the baton,
Yeah.
in a way, for Germany in this tournament.
You got the battle of 2010 winners, Spain, versus the battle of 2006 and 2014 winners in Germany. So, that this will be an interesting one to watch for sure. Who can pile it on there.
I got to get going, but I want to say thank you to Josh and Nathan for jumping on talking footy. Adam can handle the rest from here, I hope. Adam, good job hosting as always. And yeah, if you guys haven't checked out Terminal FC, I listened to about 3/4 of the podcast. It's been awesome so far. If you're a soccer person like me who's clueless going into the World Cup, I really recommend giving a listen. So, Josh, Nathan, excuse me, make sure you drop where we can listen to it before you guys wrap up today.
Oh yeah, we will.
Much.
Thanks, Andy.
So we're gonna save Group F, which is the Canadian group, for the end. But Group G, Brazil, clear favorites. Betting wise, they're actually the favorites to win the tournament.
Yeah.
So winning the group is expected. You also have Switzerland, Serbia, and Cameroon. So this is a group where we expect Switzerland and Serbia to be 2-3, but that order, once again, is key there.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I think this one's a bit of a toss-up. I think Switzerland has enough in them to do it, but I would say that I don't have full confidence in that choice.
Yeah, me neither. They're other than the midfield and Jan Sommer in goal, there isn't really a lot to be excited about. But Switzerland have always been one of those teams that don't have much star power, but can upset a giant. They did that in the Euros against France.
Yeah, absolutely. They're tenacious. And you're absolutely right. Like Brazil is just, right from goalkeeper to striker, they're just such a built team. They're built for this specific tournament. I can't see anyone else. I could see some other ones winning. I think it's going to be a very, very big surprise if someone else does. Yeah, Serbia, I don't know. There's not a lot there that's really offered to me. I think they could be a bit of a surprise for Switzerland, but this is going to be Brazil all the way.
100%.
So Group H, this one gets very interesting just because of the off-field stuff. So right now, you have Portugal projected winner, and then Uruguay at second, South Korea, and then Ghana. So this is really a battle of Portugal and Uruguay, and then South Korea and Ghana. So for those who don't know, Cristiano Ronaldo has said some controversial things about Manchester United in a recent interview, and there just seems to be some discourse between Ronaldo and some of the other Portuguese players, just in general. Do you think that that's going to translate to the pitch, or do you think that's once the jersey comes on, everything goes out all of the negativity doesn't leave the locker room type thing?
I think it could. It could. Whether or not it will, the thing with the World Cup is you're playing a game almost every 3 days. It's so fast and furious in between that you almost don't have time to think. That might be a benefit to the Portuguese team, but if any of them actually stop to take a breath, this could affect them.
Yeah, it's going to be on the back of many of the players' minds. They're going to be thinking, oh, if Ronaldo threw his club under the bus like that, if we screw up, he might do the same to us.
Yeah, I really don't know what to think of that whole Ronaldo. It just doesn't make sense why you would agree to do an interview. And
With
then,
Piers Morgan, of all people.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then basically, just act the way that you do when you know that you have a major tournament starting in a week. I don't get it.
It's a guy that's angling to get out of a club by any means possible, and the path that he's chosen is scorched earth.
Yeah, I don't know, but this this Uruguay team is pretty, stacked with some strong talent. Obviously, we have some MLS players in Torres and Karius, if I believe I'm saying that right, but for the LA Galaxy. But then you also have those mainstays like uh, Cavani, Luis Suarez, and then Darwin Nunez. Like this Uruguay team could really make some noise in this World Cup. I feel like.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I have them topping the group, and they've always been a dark horse in the World Cup just because of the talent they have, and they're a team that again you can't take lightly, and you gotta really, really give it your all against this team because they really know how to bite.
I have them topping the group as well. I think everything that Josh just said, I agree with. But what I really like in here is the midfield pairing of Bentancur and Valverde. Bentancur, I mean, we got to see what Bentancur and a player like him could do when Uruguay just played Canada not too long ago. And, I mean, he absolutely stymied. When he came off in about the 60th minute, it was right away when Canada all of a sudden came to life. What he does in his domestic league, it's the exact same. This is a guy that not only can hold that play, but the guy scores goals as well, and he makes everyone else around him just that much better. Uruguay is going to be, and they've always been a good team. I think that they're a team that could go deep.
Yeah, and Valverde is a very good, like, defensive midfielder who can also create some offense too.
Yeah, and the thing is when you put Valverde and have him sit back a bit of as a holding midfielder, it just gives that much more creative freedom to a player like Bentancur. They play well together, and I mean they've played so many times together for the Uruguayan team. Yeah, it's a team that I think is sneakily. Everyone knows they're good, but I don't think people realize just how good they could potentially be.
Yeah, you always get those teams where it's like, they in the back of your head you're like, this team's good, and then at the World Cup you're like, oh yeah, this team is good. Like
Yeah.
you kind of forget for 3.5 years that this team is good, and then as soon as the World Cup or like these international tournaments come, you're like, oh yeah, forgot about them.
The other team that's like that as well that we've already gone over their group is Costa Rica. Costa Rica, when it comes to the World Cup, I don't know what happens, but they show up.
Oh, they do.
So let's jump into this last group here. We got Belgium, Croatia, Morocco, and Canada. Now, Canada is actually the lowest percentage, well, from a betting perspective, to qualify for this group, for the quarterfinals. So right now, to qualify from Group F, Canada is at minus 435 for no, plus 275 for yes. So let's start here. We know that the Belgium game, unless like, I don't know, Estacio and Davies and David and Borion have the games of their lives, I think we can assume that that's probably a loss.
Could be.
One thing with that is Belgium, it does look increasingly like Romelu Lukaku will not be playing that game, so that does help.
But
yeah, it does help
Davies might
a little
also
bit.
not be playing that game, so
He got on a plane today. So
Yeah.
he got on the plane
And-
today.
if I understand this right, Estacio is also injured at the moment. But
He's not injured. They could have actually played him today. He was actually on the bench today,
Oh,
but
okay.
they were doing load management. He's played so much for his
Yeah.
domestic side, being Champions League and in the league, that they just needed to give him a breather. So
and how
he's ready
about
to go.
that Lucas Cavallini 94th minute
Yeah, that Panenka.
blowing it?
Who does that? And the fact that it almost got saved. I mean, I think it was really, really nice for Jonathan David to give it to Cavallini. And we've all heard the story about, this was because, you let me have the hat trick back, I think it was a couple years ago. But, yeah, I mean, that's huge balls, but he got lucky.
Yeah,
for people who don't necessarily know what we're talking about, that was the Canada-Japan pre-World Cup game, whatever you want to call it, where Canada won 2-1 in a game that neither team was really trying too hard to win, from my understanding.
Japan came with, let's call it was Japan's B team. There was
Yeah.
a lot of starters that weren't in that game. They only played, I think, with two of their main top superstar players. Canada actually came out with a pretty decent side. But, it's not a game I'd really write home about. The thing is with these sort of games, I care less about the scoreline, and I care more about just the fact that they're, relearning how to play with one another, getting that conditioning back. And I mean, I think that's what these last two games were for. So
Yeah, that's exactly what they're for.
So let's jump to that Morocco-Canada game. That seems to be if Canada's going to get a win in this group, that's the game that they're going to do it in. And that's the qualifying game basically, because Morocco's in the same boat. They're not going to beat Belgium, and more than likely they're not going to beat Croatia. So that Canada-Morocco game is basically going to determine who goes into the comes out of the group in that third position. So do you see a scenario where Canada can beat Morocco?
I do.
I do too.
The one thing is Morocco is a very good team. They were phenomenal in their qualifying stage. They didn't lose a game. But since that qualifying stage, they fired their coach and they brought in a brand new guy who hasn't really gelled with the team yet. They're basically starting over from square one a little bit. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think we really know the Morocco that we're going to be seeing yet. And I think that's also because the players on the Morocco side don't really know who they are yet. It's going to be a big question mark, but I think that question mark that's lingering in the air gives Canada a huge opportunity because they're going to be playing with a team that has a brand new coach that's going to be trying to stamp his own identity and try to get players to play his way.
Yeah, you're going to have a Moroccan team that's trying to find its structure, its system. So yeah, this is a great opportunity for Canada to get a win.
Yeah. And the thing is Canada has already done that. The fact that John Herdman has been with the team for a number of years, a lot of these guys, not only have they played together, but it almost feels like they've grown up together. I think that bodes really, really well for them.
Oh yeah, totally.
So let's jump into, we've gone through the groups and everything. So let's get your, where is it? Here we go. Your World Cup winner and who they are going to play.
I got Brazil as the winner, and it will be a rematch of 1998 against France.
So if you want to bet Brazil versus France, that's plus 1,600. Brazil to win plus 350.
You know what? I've got exactly what Josh says. That's kind of who I see is going to be in the final as well. The only reason I have it that way is because Argentina is on the same side of the bracket as Brazil, and those two are going to meet up in the semifinals. I think that's going to be the absolute, game to watch of this tournament. But it's going to be Brazil, France, and it's going to be Brazil on top.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to bet against Brazil just by the way that they're playing. I do like, how the German team does stack up, because there's something about, it's like their cars, German efficiency. No matter what happens, the passes are always crisp. You know that they're going to make, that they're going to, have structure in their game. They got one of the difference maker at the back end, Emmanuel Neuer. It doesn't matter who's on the German team. It's just very hard to bet against them.
Yeah, a well-oiled machine.
Coach this time around too, so I think that's going to give them a little bit more life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and if you are in the Vancouver area, that first Canada game Wednesday, I believe it's 11 a.m.
Yep.
Make sure to get your tickets to the Hollywood Theater where they're going to be showing it, because if my information is correct, multiple members of the Area 51 Sports Network will be there watching the game as well.
That's right.
So,
Got it.
I think we have 5 going so far, potentially
least,
more.
I think.
We will have to confirm that, but make sure to check that out. Halford and Bruff from 650 Sportsnet are going to be there. They said today that there's going to be a fancy food truck. The Whitecaps are going to be giving out some Alphonso Davies stuff. So, make sure to check that out. And make sure to set your alarm, because we got some 8 a.m. games. We got a 9 a.m. game. And if you're not a fan, if you want to watch other games as well, the Hollywood Theater, as my understanding is that they're showing as many games as they possibly can because obviously there are some games that overlap. If my understanding is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
make
that's
sure
right.
to
I'm
check
not
out
going to get a
their
lot of
website.
sleep for the next month.
Make sure to check out their website for that, and make sure to check out your alarm clocks to make sure you have it. Now, before we hop off here, this was a debate that they were having on 650 today. 7 a.m. beers while watching a game, is that a yay or a nay?
If I was still in
It's a tough one.
university, sure. But at this stage of my life, I think that might kill me.
I don't see why not. I mean, it's not what I would do, but well, why not?
Now,
I'll be doing the 7 a.m. coffee. Let's put it that way.
what's it called? There is a thing in Germany. They call it the breakfast beer. I forgot what it's called.
What, they like sprinkle oats on the top of it or something?
No. It's kind of like a shandy, if you know what that is, but it's not a shandy, and it's very, very good. I forgot
Well, if
what
they
it's
bring it
called.
over, maybe we'll have to give it a try.
You mean a Hefeweizen?
No,
That's
no,
what it's
that's
called?
the brand.
Ah, it's a brand.
There's like an actual name for it. My mom and I, when we went to Germany, it was fantastic. We were like on 9 a.m. tours, and we were drinking. Yeah, it's beer, and it's called a Radler. That's what it is. Okay.
Oh,
Ah.
Radlers. Okay, yeah, Radlers.
So-
you can get them here.
Yeah, 7 a.m.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Beer
Germans
and
love their
lemonade,
beer.
Is that a little bit different than straight beer?
I guess we'll have to see if I succumb to peer pressure or not.
Yeah. So wherever you're watching your World Cup games, remember to stay safe and make sure that you don't get too excited and destroy something in your house, because I'm sure that we will see plenty of videos from England of people smashing their TVs over the next couple weeks and burning their jerseys. I was lucky enough at the last World Cup, I believe it was. No. Yes, the last World Cup I was actually in England and Germany during the World Cup.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
And it was a party, that's for sure, especially when England was playing in England. Germany didn't do so well in that tournament. So I didn't get to experience the German, because I think they were out by the time we got to Germany. I didn't really get to experience that. But yeah, it's going to be a fun next couple months. 64 matches. If you can watch all of them, congratulations. But I don't think I'll be able to.
Me neither. I'll
I'll
try.
be having it on my TV and all my computers as much as I can.
So what? Before we wrap up here, do you guys want to throw out your where people can listen to the podcast, Terminal City FC podcast?
Yeah, totally. Terminal City FC podcast available everywhere, wherever you get your podcasts. We, of course, we don't know what we do. We talk Canada soccer, but of course we talk about the Whitecaps, local soccer, down to the CPL to League One BC, all the big stories across Europe, focus on Chelsea and Tottenham, and any big soccer story from anywhere that we can think of. So, all things soccer, everywhere from Terminal City FC, and that's at Terminal City FC on Twitter.
And my understanding is that we will also have some content coming out during the World Cup.
Oh, 100%. We'll be on top of everything.
Yes, so make sure to check out. Remember, we do have a new website. We have had it for a little bit, but just in case you do not know what the new website is, it's area51sportsnet.com. Not Sports Network anymore. So www.area51sportsnet.com. We have a cool new tagline as we are in the game. Plenty of, we got our WHL content up. Josh has a new piece up on Brock Besser. Some Canuck stuff. What's going wrong with Brock Besser so far this season. And plenty of Whitecaps stuff up there as well. So make sure to head over to area51sportsnet.com and check out also all of our socials at Area 51 Sports Network. There you can find links to all of the different websites or different articles that we have posted up there. Okay, well, thank you, Nathan and Josh, for joining us this week on the Bet99 sponsored UFO show here on the Area 51 Sports Network. Next week, we will be back with a new episode. We will hopefully be talking some Canuck wins. We'll be talking maybe about Canada not getting blown out.
Maybe?
We'll see. We'll be talking some football and any other sports you guys are interested in. So make sure to hit us up if there's anything you want us to talk about. For Andy, I'm Adam, and thank you once again for watching this week's episode of the UFO Show.